You are now tuning into the Resilient Podcast. Enjoy the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 53 of the Resilient Podcast. I am your host, Robert Aurelius, and it is officially the month of April, and it's a significant month for me because episode 54, which is the episode after this one, is going to be the 2-year anniversary episode of the Resilient Podcast. April 19th, 2024 was the year that myself and Josh hit record for the first time. The 1-year anniversary last year was shot in Vegas. I don't know where I'm going to be shooting episode 54 from, but I am not going to Las Vegas this year. I made an announcement a few weeks ago in a separate video that I did at a cafe here in New York called the Squared Circle Cafe that my friend Justin from the Ballard Club Guide Tour is going to be collaborating with the ARCG WWE Tour to provide everyone with content for WrestleMania 42 out in Vegas. Reason for me not being able to go to Vegas this year is because I do have some very, very serious demands in my time. And I was actually in the process of working with a new brand. I was going to be a brand ambassador for them, and that's what I'm going to talk to you guys about in this episode, is what went down. But I do have some obligations to fulfill, and unfortunately, those obligations are around WrestleMania week, and I can't be in two places at once. And I try to take this work with me on the road, but unfortunately, I have to physically be in certain places. So I have to be in New York that week. I have to be in Connecticut, and I do have to make a trip to Washington, D.C. So unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to go to Las Vegas. So this episode is a personal one, and not because I wanted it to be, but the name of this episode is When Your Name is Tested, Protecting Your Reputation in Silence and Chaos. And I'm going to tell you all what this means today. So, like I said, this episode is going to be a personal one, and it's not because I wanted it to be, but because sometimes life puts you in positions where your character is tested, your name is questioned, and your silence is misunderstood. What happens when people speak about you in rooms you're not in? What happens when narratives are created without your voice being part of a story? So, before I say anything further, and I talk to you all about the reality of being misunderstood, I recently was supposed to start working for a brand that I had interest in working for a long time. And I thought it was a dream come true. I thought the opportunity had finally arose. And unfortunately, during the onboarding process, someone that I know for a few years got in between and got involved in the whole hiring process. And unfortunately said some things about me that were not true, very false. And they were very slanderous. And pretty much this person defamed my name and tried to ruin my reputation. Because of that, everything shifted. Everything, took a slight turn. So last week, when I was in Madison Square Garden for Monday Night Raw, I received a text from the company that there was a few things that needed to be discussed and whatnot, and that it seemed like the hiring process took a different turn. So I immediately was like, look, I'm not going to go far with this. I'm going to do what I need to do. And first thing the next day, I was making phone calls and I reported this person, and not sure what their intention was. Um, I don't like people that are not part of the whole, like being welcoming of, someone joining a team. Um, it kind of happens to me last year when I came back to Cody. Um, One individual who I've known for such a long time, who actually they were probably in diapers when I started working for Cody. That's just how funny it is. They were not happy that I came, and it goes back to the whole quote where they say people will always, be happy that you're doing good, but they don't want you to be doing better than them. And folks, this world, there's so much hate, there's so much intimidation, there's so much just going on. And long story short, it was a situation where someone who I thought was cool with me, someone who I thought that I was in good standing with, turns out to be someone who had deep, like, secret animosity for me. And when I found out about that through a conversation that I had with someone close to me, like, hey, this person said this about you, I was really shocked. And, it caught me off guard. And, all I kept thinking was, why? Why? And then later on, I found out through other sources that, this person feared that there was a possibility that they could have lost their job. And you know what, folks? Like, I'm going to say something. I am not here to intimidate anyone, nor does anyone ever intimidate me. I've never been the type of person to feel intimidated by anyone. If I feel that someone is doing better than me, I'm happy for them. And I don't try to compete against them or anything. But if I know that I'm more deserving of something, if I know that I can have exactly what they have, or I could be on the level that they're on, I'm just going to work hard for it. This is why no one that I know has ever told me in the 40 years that I've been on this earth, no one's ever told me, I know you're jealous of me. And no one can ever say that I went after them or targeted them because I wanted to take them down because I didn't want them to be doing better than me. I talk to Diego, I talk to so many people all the time about things like this. And I always say, listen, I don't believe in competition. I don't believe in being better than anyone. I don't believe in being above anyone, because I'm not. Because regardless of where I am in life, there's always someone that's going to be higher than me. If I'm good at my marketing and promotions and podcasting, there's always a podcaster, there's always a marketer, or just someone else that's doing better than me. And that's completely fine. If it really bothers me that much, I'm just going to try to be on that same level, and that's it. But I want to talk about the fact that I think one of the hardest things to accept in life is that no matter how genuine you are, no matter how much integrity you move with, there will be moments where you are misunderstood. Not because you did something wrong. And this is something that someone personally told me on the phone and even in person, when I was just trying to wrap my head around everything last week and process everything that was happening. But they said not because you did something wrong, but because someone chose to interpret your presence through their own lens. And you can show up with respect, you can show up with intention, and still be painted in a way that doesn't reflect who you are. And, I want to start getting deep into reaction versus response. And in those moments, you're faced with a decision and you ask yourself, do you react or do you respond? Because reacting is emotional, right? It's immediate, it's driven by frustration, anger, hurt. But responding requires strength. It requires you to sit with the discomfort that comes with a lot of things, and I felt that discomfort last week. you know it requires discomfort to process what's happening and to understand that not every battle is meant to be fought loudly. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the internal battle. Let's be honest. There's a different kind of pain that comes from being misinterpreted. It's not just anger. In my case, it was confusion. It was disappointment. It's that feeling of, how did we even get here? Like, what the hell happened? Literally, that's all I kept saying to myself last week was, how did we get here? What is going on? How did this happen? How do we even get here? And, sometimes the hardest part is realizing that the people who could clear your name choose not to. And that happens a lot. And that's where resilience really begins. So, I did what I needed to do. And I made a few phone calls Tuesday morning. And I reached out to some people. And I said, listen, the folks out at this company are giving me all these political responses as to what happened and whatnot. And the funny thing is that maybe they're just not aware that I already had a few sources. By the way, people that don't know each other, because the sources that came to me, I had about 2 to 3 sources that shared the same information with me. They don't actually know each other. So this person went to multiple sources and had and I guess what it was is this person just knew that these people know me, and I don't even know if they did this on purpose. Like, if they purposely said, let me go reach out to 3 of his friends or 3 people that I know that have his back, and let's see who goes back and tells him. I mean, I don't think that's what happened, because you can't be that ignorant and stupid to do something like that. But you'd be surprised. And those people, they came. One of them came to me immediately. Came to me on Monday and told me what happened. And then the other 2 people told me on Tuesday. And I literally was like, what's so crazy? I knew, I suspected that one of them knew what happened, but the other person, I was actually going to reach out to them to tell them what happened. And I was like, oh, that's what I was reaching out to you for, to tell you that I know what happened. So I did what I needed to do. And I made a decision that is not easy, but I reached out to human resources from that company. And it was a little weird because they said, normally human resources is for someone that actually works with us. And you did work with us, for a very small stint. So it's like, now we got to hear your story. And I'm like, yeah, now you got to hear my story. So, folks, I want to talk to you more about this on this episode. This is a different shift. This is like, for the first time, we're not talking about the initial reason why the podcast was created. We're not talking about the heartbreak of my past relationship or my ex or anything. We're talking about something completely different. We're talking about different people this time, but it still wraps around resilience. So I wanted to take a quick, brief break and continue to talk to you all about this. But before we do, I wanted to take this moment to you know, take the opportunity to show love to one of our sponsors that supports this platform, the Resilient Podcast. And that is, of course, Maddie Rocks Coffee. And, if you know me, I'm a big on routine, discipline, and showing up at your best. And that starts with how you feel your day. How I feel my day is with Maddie Rocks Coffee. So, Maddie Rocks Coffee has been a part of that for me because it's smooth, it's strong, and it gives you that extra push when you need to lock in. Caffeine at its best. So, listen, if you're looking to elevate your mornings and your mindset, please check them out. And the website is right here on the screen where you can buy Maddie Rocks Coffee. And, make sure that you use my code at checkout, which is TRP10, right here on the screen. Because remember, whenever you use this code, you receive 10% off of your purchase. And it's courtesy of just listening or watching here on YouTube, the Resilient Podcast. So, folks, for all of those that are coffee lovers, especially now that, for those that are in the Northeast, the spring is here and the warm weather is coming. And some folks transition to iced coffee for the warmer weather. They have some of the best cold brew as well, and some of the best iced coffee ever. I've tried it. I love it. So, like I said, check it out. Knock yourself out. Maddie Rock's Coffee. So, thank you, Maddie Rock, for sponsoring the Resilient Podcast. So, folks, we will take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll continue to talk about, all of this stuff. So, let's take a quick break and we'll continue this conversation. All right, also welcome back to the Resilient Podcast, episode 53, where we're talking about protecting your name. We're talking about when your name is tested. And, because protecting your name isn't always about defending it, it's about how you carry yourself. Even when people expect you to break. Because trust me, people want you to fall for the trap. And, it's about understanding that your consistency, your character, and your history will always speak louder than a moment. And I want you to know that you don't have to scream to prove who you are. You just have to remain who you are. And I want to share a very important message with everyone. This isn't just my story. This happens in workplaces, in friendships, in relationships. People project. People assume. people create narratives because it's easier than seeking the truth. But the truth doesn't need noise. And that's something that I learned a long time ago. Something that I made peace with a long time ago. The truth doesn't need noise because it needs time. And that's something that I want you all to remember. Don't fall for the trap. Don't allow people to see your weakness. Don't give a reaction to someone that is setting you up to make you fall into that trap so that they can point their finger and be like, you see what I told you? They're mentally unstable. They they're a mess. And I've had people do that to me in the past when I just didn't know how to protect myself. When I was vulnerable, when I didn't know any better. And they won all the time. And then one day, I was talking to my therapist. I was telling people certain situations, and then they said, you know why they succeed? Because they get a reaction out of you. And the problem is, you're giving people a reaction, Rob, and you don't need to give anyone a reaction. Don't let people see a reaction from you. Prove them wrong. Make them look stupid. People are smart for the most part. So sometimes folks, they can detect when you're like slandering someone because you dislike them and, obviously you're miserable. They live a better life than you do and it bothers you. They can detect that. They can detect and be like, it can't be that so and so is all these things that this person says because so and so is always calm, peaceful, no reaction to anything. Meanwhile, this person's going out their way to just, destroy your character, to assassinate your character. So some people will detect that and they'll be like, huh, okay, I can tell who's wrong here, who's the villain and who's not. And you just gotta let things play out. You gotta let things come to light, Eventually everything comes to light. So folks, despite everything that happens, I wanna share a message with everyone. And the message is for those that are listening right now, for those that are watching here on YouTube right now, if you feel like your name has been tested, if you feel that your character has been questioned or your intentions misunderstood, I want you to take a moment and listen to me very clearly. I want you to remember this. Your name is built over time, not destroyed in a moment. So please remember this, folks. Remember this very well. Regardless of anything, stay grounded, stay consistent, and stay true to who you are. And I promise you, everything will work out. And eventually, like I said recently, things will come to light. They truly will. I was talking to my therapist about it today. Earlier today, I was talking to my therapist. We were recapping, from a week ago. And my therapist asked me, like, where are you mentally with this? And I said, well, I'll tell you this much. I'm not losing sleep over it because here's the thing. Maybe it was just God's way of letting me know that eventually this whole entire situation was going to be a pain. And I saved myself from something, you know? Everything happens for a reason. And that's just how I feel. I've always felt that way, always will. Everything happens for a reason. And maybe it was just God's way of protecting me from getting caught up. And that's one thing I don't want to do is get caught up in BS. I really don't. So please, folks, take my advice on that. And, you know, I promise to keep this episode short because I'm getting ready for the big episode, which is going to be episode 54. But I wanted to close things on a positive note. But before I do that, I just wanted to give one more shout out to our other sponsor, which is Nala Health, Victor out at Nala Health. And, I want to take this moment to show love to Victor because, I received a message from him today, and I'm going to read you the message. Victor's working on some new formulas, and this is what Victor said. Hey, brother, I'm working on the new cerebral, tweaking the formula, and I should have it ready in a few weeks. So Victor's got some new formulas he's coming out with. We don't know too much information yet, but 2 weeks from now, the information will be public. And how you can keep up is make sure that you follow Nala Health on social media at Nala Health, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and also follow their website, nalahealth.com. Because, folks, taking care of yourself isn't just mental, it's physical, it's internal, and the best part is it's holistic. And in moments like the ones where we talked about today, your well being matters more than ever, right? So, Nala Health creates products that support balance, recovery, and overall wellness, something we all need as we continue growing and healing. So, if you're serious about becoming a better version of yourself, I highly recommend you check them out. The website is right here on the screen, nalahealth.com. And just like always, whenever you visit their website and you decide to make a purchase, just use my code TRP10, which is right here on the screen, because you listen to this podcast, because you're subscribed to the Resilient Podcast, whether it's on Spotify or Apple Music or all the other platforms, or if you're watching this episode on YouTube and you're subscribed to our channel on YouTube, because you are listening and watching the Resilient Podcast, you will always be able to save 10% by using my code TRP10, which is right here on the screen. So, folks, don't look any further. Don't hesitate. I'm excited for these new products that Victor will be releasing soon. I'm really, really excited for that. And, one of my favorite formulas from Nala Health is insomnia. I take insomnia on, to make sure like on nights that I'm staying up late that, you know, when I take this formula and I take my shower when I go home, I really want to go to sleep. I really want to get sleep. Another one that I take is one of his phytoceuticals, which is calm, and it really helps. Like on days that I have big projects, big things to do, for example, I'm definitely going to be taking a little bit of it when I do episode 54 of the Resilient Podcast, where I celebrate the 2-year anniversary, so I don't feel overwhelmed. So, Victor's products work. And, he's got this beautiful CBD cream, and I probably talked about it before to you guys, but like sometimes I deal with joint pain, especially during the winter time when I unfortunately start feeling like a little bit of swelling in my knee from a fracture that I had a few years ago. When I put this cream on, oh man, it really makes my knee feel good. And I could peacefully sleep at night too. So again, check them out, nalahealth.com, and save 10% off your purchase. I'm always going to talk about Nala Health because I love Nala Health. Nala Health is such a great brand with great products. So Victor, shout out to you one more time. Congratulations on everything that you're doing and keep up the good work. And I look forward to these new formulas that are coming out soon. So, folks, we're going to be closing out this episode soon. But before we do, in the cards of James, today I pulled out a beautiful card. And this card literally says, today is a new day. Today's a new day. Last week, I had some issues. Last week, I was in the process of starting a new job, a new opportunity, and then someone came and messed it up. And then I had to handle it. I had to take care of it the best way that I could. But I was able to move on from it. Like I said, I'm not losing sleep over it. I'm only bringing it up in this episode because it's the topic that I wanted to talk about today. I wanted to talk about when your name is tested. But folks, like, you know, we can't dwell on things. We just live, we learn, we understand the role that we played in a situation, and then we just move on. And we can't look at the past. And the past was yesterday. The past is exactly what it is, the past. So today is a new day. Today we start fresh. Today we move on. Today we think about what's secure, what's important, what truly matters. And we just move on for the best. We make peace with the past. We find closure or make our own closure if we can. And then we just move on. You can't let things rent space in your head. You can't let things take over and destroy your happiness. Don't let anything or anyone ever come in between you and your happiness. So, like I said, today's a new day. Move on, move forward, move onward. And that's what I intend to do. So, let's talk about the next episode 54. Episode 54 will be the second anniversary of the Resilient Podcast. I do feel overwhelmed at the fact that my podcast is turning 2 years. I was not expecting that. I was not expecting to be at 50 something episodes already. And, when we celebrated episode 50 last month in the month of March, I was like, man, this is really, really interesting. This is really entertaining. And now it's like, here we are with, episode 54 coming up. You know what's cool? That before the end of the year, I'm assuming we will already have close to 75 episodes. And without a doubt, next year in 2027, episode 100 will be celebrated. And I can't wait for that. So, that's then. This is now. So, right now, all I can say is episode 54 is going to be beautiful. I'm going to talk about great things. And then, you know, sometime next month for the month of May, I'll have a guest and it'll be great. And I look forward to that. But I hope you all look forward to episode 54 before the end of the month, where I literally celebrate 2 years of the Resilient Podcast. I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it, but I'm definitely excited. So, folks, I hope today's episode served you some purpose. I hope that you can relate, and I hope that you can take the advice. If you got to listen to this episode a few times, if you got to watch this episode a few times and go back to the messages that I laid out earlier, please do. But please, folks, always remember that it's important to always remain resilient. Okay? Life is too short. Life is too beautiful. and remember that you matter. And I've always told you all, stay true to who you are. That's all you need to focus on, is staying true to who you are. So this is all I got for episode 53. And I thank you all for tuning in. Don't hesitate to reach out to me. Um, don't hesitate to, if you want to have a conversation, let's have a conversation. But, you know, again, I look forward to episode 54. And I also look forward to this month's article. This month's article in the Resilience Tribune, right here on the screen, resilienttribune.com, is going to be a very interesting article. This is an individual who reached out to me actually about a few months ago. And they were like, listen, I'm very interested in pitching something to you. And then I said, okay. And then I said to them, are you a writer? And they said, yes. And, when I told them about the Resilience Tribune, the rest is history. So I look forward to the article, which is coming out later on this month. Make sure you check in, and, come back to the resilienttribune.com, and it will be literally on resilienttribune.com/publications. But yeah, I'm so excited for everything that's happening this month. And I look forward to next episode. So on behalf of the Resilient Podcast, I am Rob Aurelius. Thank you for tuning in. And I will see you all in the next episode. But for now, thank you again. Appreciate you all from the bottom of my heart. And I'll see you all soon. Peace.